This competitive Vanilluxe set only has 3 moves on it, and that isn't a mistake. This is actually the optimal set for Vanilluxe in the Gen 8 underused competitive format. But why? Why would you not run a 4th move on your Pokemon if you have the ability to? Why only run 3 moves? Well, there's a very interesting reason for that. The item on this Vanilluxe is Choice Specs, which grants 1.5x special attack at the cost of locking your Pokemon into a move until they switch out. And the moveset here is Blizzard, Freeze Dry, and Sleep Talk. Just these 3 moves. It's kind of weird in the first place to be using Vanilluxe in Gen 8 UU when it's a very low tier Pokemon. It's ranked much lower by usage. But Vanilluxe has value in this format as a wall breaker. It only runs Ice-type attacks and it only needs to. Vanilluxe has the ability Snow Warning, which sets Hail on the field on switch-in. Blizzard is perfectly accurate in the Hail and becomes an amazing move. Vanilluxe has a good special attack stat of 110, and this high-power stab-boosted Blizzard, boosted further by Choice Specs, is very difficult to switch in against. Even resistances, like Cobalion and Scizor, who resist Ice, will still get 2-hit KO'd on the way in and take significant damage. And common defensive Pokemon like Tangrowth and Hippowdon just get straight up 1-hit KO'd. Freeze Dry is perfect to cover potential water-type switch-ins. There are a lot of bulky water types in Gen 8 UU as well, such as Primarina, Slowking, and Tentacruel. Freeze Dry, of course, deals super effective damage specifically against the water type, which makes it a fantastic complementary move here. But the interesting part of this set is Sleep Talk. Sleep Talk is a move that you can only use while you're asleep, and what it does is allows you to act while you're asleep, which you usually wouldn't be able to. Sleep Talk will randomly use one of the other moves on your moveset while you're asleep. This is usually used in conjunction with Rest, which puts your Pokemon to sleep and heals them. But in this case, Sleep Talk is being used as a form of counterplay against enemy sleep. You see, Amoonguss is a common Pokemon in Gen 8 UU, and a very powerful one, with the excellent move Spore, that sets sleep with 100% accuracy. Vanilluxe can safely switch in against Amoonguss and take this Spore while still being able to use one of its Ice-type attacks. It can select Sleep Talk upon being hit by this Spore, and it will always use either Blizzard or Freeze Dry, directly threatening the Amoonguss and most switch-ins as well. And this is the reason why you don't need a 4th move on this set. There's usually no reason not to run a 4th move, but in this case, it would actually make Sleep Talk worse. Because Blizzard and Freeze Dry are such good moves, running a 4th move would reduce the odds that you hit Blizzard or Freeze Dry. These are the only 2 attacks you really need. Besides Blizzard and Freeze Dry, Vanilluxe doesn't have much in the way of relevant coverage. It has Flash Cannon as an option, a Steel-type special attack. But this doesn't hit anything, really. You'd rather just hit them with a big neutral Ice-type attack, even if Flash Cannon is super effective. You could maybe run Toxic just as a 4th option that might do something, or Ice Beam as an extra Ice-type attack, but actually running these would make Sleep Talk worse because it would add a chance to call that move instead of the much meta Blizzard or Freeze Dry. So for that reason, it's optimal here to only run 3 moves, which is a very unique case. Any possible 4th moveset option here would actually be less valuable than just increasing the odds of Sleep Talk being better by not running a 4th move. Another reason why Sleep Talk is pretty good here is because it saves your PP on Blizzard. Blizzard only has 8 PP and it can actually be stalled easily. 8 is not very much, and any special wall can potentially run Vanilluxe out of its Blizzards. But Sleep Talk doesn't consume the PP of the move it calls. Sleep Talk has its own separate PP of 16, making it a pretty efficient move to run here. And Vanilluxe is pretty amazing as a sleep sack. Choosing which of your Pokemon to be put to sleep can be a tough choice, but this set really simplifies it, and this Vanilluxe functions about the same whether it's awake or asleep. This is a Pokemon that knows what it is. It's an ice cream, a Bing Chilling, and sometimes the best flavor of ice cream is a simple vanilla, without any bells and whistles, no toppings, no fancy flavors, just a vanilla ice cream that clicks Blizzard and defeats its opponents on the battlefield through sheer ingenuity. A very inspirational Bing Chilling, this one. Now, the Pokemon Xerneas is not based on an ice cream. This is pretty different. This is a ancient deer god with many antlers. Xerneas is of course one of the most powerful legendaries ever, we all know it. And yet Xerneas and Vanilluxe have something in common. Xerneas was inspired by the ingenuity of Vanilluxe, and so it decided to also run a set with only 3 moves on it for a competitive advantage. But this one is a little bit different. This one's very weird, actually, because this Xerneas is running a Choice Scarf, an item that locks you into a move but grants 1.5x speed. A great item. And the set here is Moonblast, Geomancy, and Sleep Talk. Now, one of these moves sticks out as particularly bizarre on this set, and that is Geomancy. Why would you run Geomancy with a Choice Scarf set? Because if you lock into the move Geomancy, you won't be able to select an attack and utilize the boost that you've just gained. Also, Geomancy is commonly used with a Power Herb to skip the charge turn, because Geomancy would usually require 2 turns to charge. So this is quite strange, isn't it? Well, this is a very interesting scenario. This is a similar set to the Vanilluxe one in that it's running Sleep Talk, and that's part of the point, is that this Xerneas switches in on sleep moves purposefully to tank it. And the big one in Gen 6 Ubers, the format where this set is used, is Darkrai. Darkrai still a valued member of the Ubers metagame at this time before the Dark Void nerf. So Xerneas can switch in on Darkrai and then utilize Sleep Talk to call Moonblast, which is of course super effective against Darkrai and threatens to KO it. Generally, Xerneas is clicking Moonblast, or wants to click Moonblast, like 90% of the time. And Scarf Xerneas can carry other coverage, like Focus Blast to hit steel types, or Thunder to hit such fellas as Kyogre, but there is a benefit to cutting these options on this Sleep Talk set, because it's a bit of a disaster if you call Thunder from Sleep Talk against the Darkrai you're in front of, and it doesn't do enough, or perhaps it misses against the Darkrai. You want to guarantee that Moonblast is called by only having Moonblast as an attack. But then you might be thinking to yourself, well, Jimothy, wouldn't it be a catastrophe beyond anything to call Geomancy from Sleep Talk? Wouldn't that be the worst case of all time? Geomancy being a boosting move that has to charge. This would be totally useless to call from Sleep Talk. Well, you're absolutely right. That would be a huge disaster. But this is something that cannot happen. Geomancy is a move that cannot be called from Sleep Talk. So on this set, Sleep Talk will only be able to call Moonblast. Moonblast is guaranteed as an outcome from Sleep Talk. And that is actually the reason you're running Geomancy, because there's no drawback to running Geomancy. It doesn't mess up your Sleep Talk, so you can just chuck it on with no downside. Basically, this set is just Moonblast and Sleep Talk, but you can just throw Geomancy on here for a very fringe off chance that it does something in the event that your Xerneas gets its item knocked off. And maybe using Geomancy could be a win condition if it can survive the charge turn. This is like a 1% chance of being relevant or something like that, but there's genuinely no reason not to use it because it provides no drawback, it does not mess with Sleep Talk, and it also could win you a game in a random, very specific scenario. So why not chuck it on? If Vanilluxe could learn Geomancy for some reason, it could also use Geomancy as a 4th move slot on that set mentioned previously, because there would be no drawback to that either. That would not mess with its Sleep Talk calls. Unfortunately, Geomancy is an ancient deer technique, only available to use on deer legendaries, so that's impossible. But since Xerneas is such a big fan of Vanilluxe, and he learned this trick from Vanilluxe in the first place, maybe Xerneas will initiate some training, such that Vanilluxe can learn Geomancy. I'm gonna say, based on the circumstances, that this has about a 70% chance of happening in Gen 10. Now, Crobat here has gone a bit too far. And on this set for Crobat in Gen 3OU, there are only 2 moves on the set. At this point, we are straying from good sense. What are we doing here? Crobat, on this particular set, is running the 2 moves Sleep Talk and Whirlwind only. And I think that you can perhaps put together at this point why this is the case. This Crobat is a little bit evil, and he aims to be put to sleep on purpose to break the rules of the game a little bit. You see, Whirlwind is a good move, commonly used in competitive, that forces the enemy to switch out to a random ally. It is a good way to remove boosts from an enemy Pokemon, as forcing them to switch will reset their stat stages. It is also a good way to rack up hazard damage, as forcing an enemy to switch in will make them step on spikes. However, Whirlwind has negative priority on it, so it can't be executed first in a turn. For balance reasons, if you could do this first on a fast Pokemon, you could prevent the enemy from taking their turn, force them to switch, and just infinitely rack up spikes chip damage, reducing the level of interaction possible. But if Whirlwind is called from Sleep Talk, that's not the case. If it's called from Sleep Talk, it will bypass that negative priority and be called immediately. So this Crobat here can be put to sleep on purpose, like the previously mentioned Pokemon. These are sleepers that like to go to bed. Crobat switches in on a Breloom Spore or something similar, and now that it's asleep, its only move on the set is Whirlwind, so it will always execute Whirlwind from Sleep Talk. And if spikes are up, this Crobat can just spam Sleep Talk and Whirlwind things repeatedly, racking up a bunch of spikes chip. How absolutely devious. But of course, Crobat is a mere imitation of the far more successful and strategic and smart Xerneas and Vanilluxe, and so there are some cracks in this strategy that result in a bit of inconsistency. First of all, sleep is not so ubiquitous in Gen 3 that you're going to face sleep matchups in every battle, and therefore this Crobat is often complete dead weight. If you are up against an opponent that has no sleep moves on their team, then this Crobat is literally useless, except for maybe clicking Whirlwind with the normal negative priority, and Crobat's not bulky, so that kind of stinks, doesn't it? Also, even if this Crobat successfully gets put to sleep and does the trick, there's a chance it could wake up, and then its whole strategy is ruined. In fact, the chance to wake up increments every turn, so you only have a couple of turns usually to do these Whirlwinds, and then that's it. And on the turn that you do wake up, you're going to be completely inactive if you've clicked Sleep Talk for no benefit, and the enemy can KO you, perhaps. So this Crobat set is kind of a stupid joke, if anything, really, and it's a cheap imitation of the much smarter Vanilluxe, who is a Bing Chiling. Crobat, however, is a bat who looks very, very evil, has a very frightening grimace on its face, as juxtaposed to the delightful smile on the face of Vanilluxe. And this is a big problem for Crobat. He has evil in his heart, and therefore his strategy is not sound. The set is listed on Smogon. I actually don't think it should be, because it's a ridiculous joke of a set that I don't advise using. But it is there, and this has been used, and sometimes it can work. But sometimes is the key word there. Now this right here is the most popular set for Blissey in Gen 8 Ubers. A ridiculous set where Blissey is utilizing the item Utility Umbrella. Why do you have an umbrella, Blissey? Utility Umbrella is an item that simply ignores rain and sun-based effects. It is an anti-weather item. And this is quite a strange choice on Blissey, because why wouldn't you just run Leftovers for a far more useful effect overall, offering chip healing, or heavy-duty boots for hazard immunity? Won't these come up more often than ignoring rain and sun-based effects? What the hell? Blissey, what are you doing, you doofus? This Blissey set is also utilizing the interesting move Confide, which is like a special attack version of a Growl, famously used on the Pokemon Rattata. Confide lowers the target's special attack by a measly 1 stage. Why would you use this and not something like Seismic Toss or Toxic, or something smarter? Confide seems a bit random. Believe it or not, this Blissey set is actually very well thought out and optimal. And the reason for the Utility Umbrella is very specific. Utility Umbrella is specifically good against one Pokemon, Kyogre. And you're not even trying to cancel a weather synergy or a weather ability. You're just trying to cancel the bonus damage that Kyogre gets from rain. Even though Blissey is a great special wall with amazing stats, Kyogre can still overpower it with a rain-boosted, choice specs boosted, modest water spout. Water spout has a 150 power at full HP, at full capacity. With the boost from the rain and the choice specs, it does 60 to 71% to this Blissey set. Even if Blissey has full special defense EVs, that is too much damage. That is a lot of damage, and this is one of the most common sets in the format. It's very common as a wall-breaking set. Kyogre's a powerful legendary. But if Blissey just simply puts an umbrella on, that damage is reduced to 40%. 40 to 47% is the damage roll if Blissey's wearing the umbrella. Because the umbrella will cancel that water-type boost from the rain temporarily. It will cut 1.5x from the damage. And that's a significant amount of damage to reduce. And now Blissey can switch in and not worry about being 2-hit KO. This allows Blissey to cleanly 1 versus 1 Kyogre. And usually in these scenarios, Blissey would utilize the move Seismic Toss for its 1 versus 1 capabilities, as a clean flat 100 damage against any opponent. But this Blissey is attackless. This is a Blissey without any damaging moves whatsoever, instead opting for Confide. And the purpose behind Confide is to defeat setup sweepers in a 1 versus 1. Kyogre can carry Calm Mind, and with enough Calm Mind boosts, Kyogre can overpower Blissey with overwhelming damage, but Confide lowers the enemy's special attack by 1 and cancels out the offensive boosts that Kyogre is utilizing. So Confide allows Blissey to defeat Kyogre eventually in a 1v1 just on PP alone. Confide is good in other matchups too, like against Geomancy Xerneas. If a Xerneas commits to Geomancy, Confide in just 2 turns will erase the special attack boosts. Perhaps Xerneas might choose to continue Geomancying to eventually defeat and overpower a Blissey, even though it has to charge to do so. It might still be worth it, but clicking Confide twice will cancel out those Geomancy boosts completely, and this also means that Blissey will win in a 1 versus 1 against Xerneas over time. Confide has 32 PP, meaning it can be used a lot of times, and often it can be used more than the boosts can be used. Another thing you can defeat is Meteor Beam Eternatus. Eternatus can carry Meteor Beam with a Power Herb to gain a special attack boost. Sometimes that can be enough to overpower Blissey, but with Confide you can cancel out the Meteor Beam boost and defeat Eternatus. So this Blissey can defeat setup sweepers and choice specs users with this set, and the Confide can also just generally be used to pass a turn and weaken the enemy, eventually forcing them out because they're going to lose on PP. With 16 soft boils and 32 Confides, any special attacker that tries to 1v1 Blissey will just eventually lose on PP, because they can't do enough damage in one attack to equal 1 soft boiled, especially when they're getting Confided a bunch of times, and their attack just gets weaker and weaker and weaker. With this set carrying the Umbrella and the Confide, Blissey has insurance against most special attackers in Ubers, no matter how powerful. There are some that can overpower Blissey, like a Mewtwo with Psy Strike or something that can attack through the defense stat and overwhelm Blissey, but this Blissey is damn good against the vast majority of special attackers in Ubers, and is a hard counter to them much of the time. The Umbrella looks like a weird choice, but this is a smart choice from Blissey. I've just been using umbrellas to prevent rain from falling onto me, as the umbrella creates a shield between me and the rain. But I was stupid to do that, because I could have been using an umbrella for a far better purpose, to 1 versus 1 the ancient legendary beast Kyogre. I didn't think of that. Little old me can 1 versus 1 Kyogre with a mere umbrella? What an auspicious discovery. Folks, there is a competitive format in the singles world called Little Cup. This is a format where the maximum level is 5 and you can only use the first stage in a Pokemon's evolution line. Heavy hitters in this format include Mienfoo, who is a top tier Little Cup entity. Volibee is very good, and Abra is also a superstar of the format, high tier in many generations. Abra has great stats for a baby Pokemon, especially its 105 base special attack, which is well above average for first stage evolutions. It also has a great 90 base speed. Abra is popular in almost every generation of Little Cup, and this is a Pokemon with very lopsided offensive stats. 105 special attack and a measly 20 base attack. Extremely low attack stat that is seemingly unusable. Such a low attack stat would mean that surely it is out of the question to even think about running a physical attack on Abra. So then why does this Gen 8 Little Cup Abra set have 2 physical attacks on it? This set has Fire Punch and Focus Punch off the back of an impressive 20 attack. Abra, what are you doing? Have you seen your own stats? Why are you trying to punch people? You have mental abilities. You are not a physically imposing creature. Stop that. This is a very interesting case. Gen 8 was a bad generation for Abra. It was a devastating generation because the move Hidden Power was cut from the game. Hidden Power was a universal coverage move that most Pokemon in the game had access to. There could be any type you want based on your Pokemon's IVs. And Abra would use Fire or Fighting type Hidden Power as a crucial coverage to hit important enemies, like Ferroseed, who is very common, Baby Ferrothorn, ×4 weak to Fire. Hidden Power Fire is perfect for that as a special attacking option that Abra wouldn't get otherwise. Fighting is useful not only for Ferroseed, but also for Pawniard. But now, without Hidden Power, Abra is lacking in these important coverage options that used to be so imperative for it. And Abra has so little in the way of other options in its moveset to hit these Pokemon that it is resorting to its physical attacks to actually deal damage to these fellas. That is how desperate the situation is for Abra in Gen 8. But what's amazing is that this Fire Punch off the back of a mere 20 attack still does really good damage to Ferroseed to be worth running on Abra. This Fire Punch does 54 to 72% damage to Ferroseed, which is considerable for an Abra physical attack. That's what a ×4 weakness will do to you, Ferroseed. A devastating blow to the ego of Ferrothorn's son. So Fire Punch is worth running just for this matchup. And Focus Punch is worth running for the Pawniard matchup. Focus Punch is a very cool move that has a massive 150 power, but will fail if the user takes damage on the move it's clicked. So you can predict if the enemy uses Focus Punch, hit them, and then the Focus Punch will fail. But if you predict that the enemy is going to switch out, Focus Punch is the perfect move to use. And that's exactly the point of it. Because Pawniard is such a common switch in against Abra that Focus Punch became worth using. And because of the ×4 super effective damage and the massive power of this move, an Abra Focus Punch actually has a 93.8% chance to KO Pawniard. It's kind of crazy that it's still not 100% given the high power and ×4 super effective damage. But this is Eviolite Pawniard we're talking about. Just boost its defense. So I think it's impressive that Abra can deal this much damage with a physical attack to something. That's considerable. And with these two Pokemon, Pawniard and Ferroseed, being so ubiquitous in Little Cups, so top tier and so common, it's actually worth it for Abra to run these physical attacks that would seem so terrible on a Pokemon with unusable attacks, seemingly. But anything's usable if the meta is centralized enough around powerful Pokemon, folks. Ferroseed is so common that Fire Punch is worth running on Abra, and Focus Punch for Pawniard. How humorous. I just hope Abra does not Focus Punch me. That might hurt. I'm presumably a normal type as a normal person, so that would be super effective and have a high base power as well. Although with such low attack, I don't know if you'd one-hit KO me, Abra. And I'd be able to follow up with a normal type physical attack of some sort, and probably one-hit KO you since you have such low defenses. And you're not carrying a Focus Sash on this particular set. So maybe this would not work out for you so well, Abra. Maybe you shouldn't punch me. And you should instead use psychic powers to kill me. That would get me. I could not survive a psychic blast from you. But if you punch me, I think I could come out on top of the scenario. But Abra in Little Cup is not the only Pokemon that has resorted to using its worst offensive stat for some niche competitive interaction. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Pokemon Landorus Therian, a competitive superstar, a #1 usage Pokemon in multiple generations. Powerful in singles and doubles, known for its incredible typing stats and ability and move pool. And one of its most famous traits is its massive attack stat of 145. With this enormous attack, Landorus Therian can dish out serious damage even on defensive sets without any attack investment. But amazingly, Landorus Therian in Gen 9 more commonly runs a special attacking set than a physical one. despite its special attack being way lower. Its special attack is 105 compared to 145. Actually, it's the same special attack stat as Abra. That's a bit funny. Why in the world would this be the case? Why would Landorus Therian use Earth Power more commonly than Earthquake? Earth Power is the special attacking ground type rather than the physical Earthquake. Well, there's many reasons for this that makes Earth Power a better choice in the Gen 9 metagame. The first reason is that Earth Power does more damage to the Pokemon Great Tusk than Earthquake does. Even though Landorus Therian has a higher attack stat than special attack, Earth Power ends up dealing more damage to this particular Pokemon because its special defense is so much lower than its defense. And since Great Tusk is such a common matchup and Landorus Therian is pretty good against it, with defensive traits that match up well against it, Earth Power is often preferable, largely because of this. Another reason that Earth Power is good against Great Tusk is because it can carry the option of Bulk Up. Bulk Up Great Tusk will increase its attack and defense every time it uses the move. And with a ramping defense stat, Earthquake will deal less and less. But Earth Power not only just does more damage initially, but also does more damage in this case because it ignores these defensive boosts and attacks Great Tusk on the special side, completely bypassing its defensive boosts. In a similar vein, Earth Power is a good option against Zamazenta. Zamazenta is a Pokemon that gains a defense boost upon simply switching into the field, and it can use the combination of Iron Defense to raise its defense and Body Press to attack based on its defense stat as a win condition. And this is a very common and popular Pokemon. So Earthquake Landorus Therian would probably lose to this, as the defense would be too high for Earthquake to do much. Earth Power, being a special attack, ignores all of Zamazenta's defense boosts and deals far more damage to it, which is quite significant. Earth Power also has the benefit of improving the matchup against Glimmora. Glimmora is a new Pokemon with the ability Toxic Debris. This ability will set toxic spikes on the enemy's field if struck by a physical attack. Earthquake is a physical attack, so Earth Power will still do ×4 damage to Glimmora and do plenty, enough to one-hit KO it, but it will not activate the Toxic Debris and leave your team vulnerable to being poisoned by toxic spikes. That's another matchup where Earth Power is superior. Another factor that makes Earth Power nice is that Rillaboom is a member of the metagame, and Rillaboom sets grassy terrain on the field. And grassy terrain has the unique effect of lowering the damage of Earthquake specifically. It specifically nerfs the Earthquake damage. So this is another reason. If grassy terrain is up, Landorus Therian will do less damage with Earthquake than with Earth Power, because Earth Power is not affected by this grassy terrain effect. With all that considered, Earth Power is actually quite a good alternative, because there's so many scenarios where you want special damage, and special damage is better, and Earthquake is actually a detriment. It's a bit funny, because just looking at this Pokemon, Earthquake would seem like the obvious option, and in most generations, Earthquake is the obvious option. But in Gen 9, Earth Power is better for all these reasons. And sometimes Landorus Therian can even go crazy and run a Grass Knot as another option to do significant damage to Great Tusk, because Grass Knot is super effective against Great Tusk and hits based on weight. And Great Tusk is a very heavy elephant, so Grass Knot will deal considerable damage to that. This will also do good damage to Dondozo, a common water-type physical wall that is weak to grass, of course, and also very heavy as a big catfish creature. So that's considerable too. Generally, just Earth Power is enough though, and you'd rather carry some utility instead, but Grass Knot is another option to consider. Special attacking Landorus Therian, rather a novel concept, but it's one that exists before our eyes in front of us in the Gen 9 metagame, and is popular and good and common. But even stranger, I think, than special attacking Landorus Therian is special attacking Iron Treads. This is a Pokemon with way lower special attack. It only has 72 special attack, while its attack is good at 112. So why would this be a special attacker? This is even more difficult to justify, isn't it? Well, this is a pretty cool one too. Iron Treads is a ground steel type that is very good as a Stealth Rock setter and Rapid Spinner in one. Similar to Great Tusk, but with a different defensive profile. It can set hazards and remove them, and it's also reasonably offensively potent and defensively potent. But Iron Treads has a pretty bad matchup against Petulant, who has been on the rise in Gen 9. Petulant is a ghost poison type, meaning it can block rapid spin and deny that from taking effect. And Petulant also has such a high defense stat that it can take an Earthquake and not be 2-hit KO'd by Earthquake. It'll still take a good amount from Earthquake, about 40-something%, but it's a real roadblock for Iron Treads to effectively rapid spin, since Petulant can switch in and not die to 2 Earthquakes. But if Iron Treads is running special attack EVs and carrying Earth Power, it can threaten Petulant much better, because Petulant's special defense is far lower. Earth Power will deal over half to Petulant. It can actually deal 58 to 69% damage to Petulant, which is far better. And being able to do more damage to Petulant is significant enough to consider running Earth Power Iron Treads with special attack investment, despite your base stat being so much lower. This is actually another reason that Landorus Therian likes Earth Power, for that Petulant matchup. That's another point in that set's favor. But another reason to run Iron Treads with special attack is for the move Steel Beam. Steel Beam is a very interesting high-power steel-type special attack that comes at a cost. It has a 140 power, which is massive, but when you use it, you lose half of your HP. But in this case, this could be a good thing. The sheer power of this move actually does a lot of heavy lifting in the damage department, and Steel Beam can do really good damage to physical-oriented Pokemon like Great Tusk, Gliscor, and Zamazenta. You can deal a lot of damage to them. And Steel Beam can also be used to deliberately feint on purpose, as if your Pokemon faints, it actually blocks Rapid Spin and Defog from happening. Because Rapid Spin and Defog need a target to execute and remove the hazards. If there's no target on the field, because the target has ended their own existence, then these moves don't occur. So that can actually be useful strategically, to do a bunch of damage and then die, and then pivot to something as well, because fainting means you can switch to something else. This can be a good momentum play that denies hazards and is great on a hyper-offensive team. And of course, Iron Treads can also benefit from not proccing the Glamora ability with Earth Power. That's another reason that this can be useful. The exact same interaction that Landorus Therian finds itself in. How humorous that 2 different physical ground types have been pushed towards a special attacking set because of these meta conditions. And in the case of Iron Treads, it is a far worse special attacker, but it's still doing it anyway because the meta calls for it. Now, I will say that this special attacking Iron Treads is not exactly the most common set on it. You can run physical options on it, more than Landorus Therian does, but this is a genuine set that people use for these reasons, and it is a good one. It's always fascinating when specific meta conditions in competitive Pokemon lead to these sets that are actually optimal, but when you first look at them, seem completely bizarre and antithetical to what a good Pokemon moveset is. Deliberately running no 4th move, wearing an umbrella for seemingly no reason, or perhaps being a physical attacking Abra with a 20 base attack. These things seem bizarre, but they are actually optimal in the competitive context, and have resulted from players trying to find solutions for problems that arise in these specific metagames. It is as if the universe itself willed these sets into existence. These could not have existed if not for the tides of time forcing them to exist to create consistency in strange times. The great Michelangelo famously said that within a block of marble was a complete sculpture already done inside of it. And he's not actually doing any sculpting himself. He is merely revealing what is already there. So I believe that special attacking Iron Treads is sort of the Pokemon equivalent of Michelangelo's masterpiece, the Pieta. And these are the exact same thing. And you can't disprove me because that's my subjective opinion. That's about it for that one, folks. Some interesting sets that have arisen due to strange metagame conditions. Did I miss any that you think are interesting? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you for watching.